Now, the El Nino-induced drought had long been predicted. Erratic rainfall throughout the country is expected to affect harvests. Recently, there were indications that the drought may not turn out to be as drastic as first predicted, but the current dry spell has left farmers a little anxious. Michelle Kanguru gives us more.
These are some of the crops battling to overcome the dry spell. It's not a good picture. And barring any miracles, Zimbabwe is heading for a drought. The first signs of the El Nino-induced drought was the rainfall, which came rather late. Farmers then could afford a smile as they managed to start planting. In some areas, the rains actually caused flooding, but that still did not change the forecast. It's been days since proper rainfall was received in most parts of the country, and crops are either failing or hanging by a thread.
If the long dry spell persists, it is a bad situation for farmers in Albatros because there will be no water for irrigation, even for watering livestock or animals in general. Farming as a whole is going to grind to a halt.
Those that will be hard hit are subsistence farmers, and that affects food security in the country. Normally, there is a huge population that grows for own consumption in the country.
What we urge farmers to do is to be very patient and be expectant. And as the clouds have started building up, we hope we'll be getting some rains in the next maybe 4 or 5 days sometime this week. But should the dry spell persist, you find that this is not the end of the world. We still have good water bodies, that's your boreholes, and that's our dams. So we can say to farmers they have to quickly make a choice and switch to horticultural crops and also to winter crop where they'll be able to irrigate.
Authorities say they have already made an assessment to find out communities that are food insecure. But these new developments require another assessment.
Government's pledge and commitment to be able to guarantee food security for everyone, because we have sufficient grain within the GMB to guarantee the social welfare requirements of this nation until the next harvest.
Government says there is enough grain to feed the country for at least 9 months. But most subsistence farmers' plight means authorities need more than just those reserves, as most of them will require aid. It's a big challenge, and so far, it has been treated just that way. For ZTN Prime in Harare, I'm Michelle Kanguru.
We now cruise over to the Meteorological Services Department of Zimbabwe to find out if there is likely to be any change in circumstances in the coming days. So, very good evening. Is there a chance rainfall can be experienced in the country in the coming days? And can we expect farmers to salvage anything this season?
Thank you very much for that question. We have had a bit of a wet spell over the Eastern Highlands as of this morning. This was because of a cooling southeasterly over the southern parts of the country, which gave us cloudy conditions over much of Matabeleland South, Masvingo, as well as Manicaland. And in the latter province, we had more of the light rain and drizzle, especially over the Eastern Highlands, where Nyanga recorded 16 millimeters, into Chisengu with about 11 millimeters and 9 millimeters in Chipinge area. And this system is, however, fading off. We had also an isolated shower over Victoria Falls because of moisture over the northwestern parts of the country. So we've had isolated incidences for the earlier parts of February, where even areas such as Chipinge recorded 48, 44 millimeters was recorded in Kariba, as well as 30 in Mount Darwin. Even areas such as Cholocho had about 11 millimeters of rainfall in the earlier parts of February. So we're having these isolated incidences of rainfall in different parts of the country. But in the week ahead, we're expecting mostly sunny conditions across much of the country, with still a chance of isolated pockets of moisture giving us isolated showers in places. For the month of March, we're expecting the El Nino phenomenon to fade off. We're expecting precipitation to also slightly increase in some areas, and a few odd showers can be expected in areas such as Mashonaland provinces, as well as Tebeleland North and South and the Midlands province.
Well, thank you very much to James Goma from the Met Department, who was just joining us live on the line. Now, maize is the staple food in the country. It is therefore important to understand the key growth stages of the crop to get a deeper understanding of the state of crops in Zimbabwe and the likely outcome. The 8 key growth stages of maize are critical to fully understand why some crops may not make it. Now, depending on seed variety, the maize crops need about 12 to 17 days to reach emergence stage, with soil temperature being a major factor. Weaning, when there is an appearance of new roots and plant will no longer dependent on seed reserves. Water is crucial at this stage. There is also great need for water and nutrients when the maize crop reaches the initiation of ears. The crop then reaches when the stage when the tassel is visible. At this growth stage, there is great sensitivity to lack of water and nitrogen. Female flowering is the next stage, where there is fertilization of ovules by pollen. There is then the grain absorption limit stage, the doughy grain stage, and black layer. Now we now cross over to Michelle Kanguru, who spoke to some officials in the past week on issues to do with food security. Michelle, it's a very good evening to you. What has government said about the food security in the country?
Thank you very much. The ministry is on record saying they already know the communities that are food insecure at this stage. It is expected that the impact of this drought will add to those numbers. A budget has already been put forward to ensure the purchase of food aid required by the various affected communities. So the impression given so far by the ministries concerned, including the Agricultural Ministry, is that once funding is released, the plan of action is in place. But what is perhaps very critical at this stage is the enhancement of multi-stakeholder coordination to create collective impact. This is because we know that reality on the ground is that other development partners are also helping feed the affected communities. Coordination is therefore critical to ensure that resources are maximized.
Now, in situations like this, Michelle, what steps must be taken by authorities?
I think there are 4 basic steps that must be followed. There is assessment and preparedness, response and mitigation, resilience building, and then the last one, which is monitoring and evaluation. So under assessment, which the government is on record saying they have already done, it allows authorities to know the vulnerable groups and then react to the challenges. Then under response and mitigation, it mostly involves delivering emergency relief support to the affected communities based on earlier findings. Then under resilience building, which is very, very critical, it involves capacitating the affected communities beyond just the immediate drought. We have to look into the future. Then monitoring and evaluation helps improve institutional frameworks, basically enhancing governance to ensure a more resilient environment in the future.
Konapo Konapo, Ipapo pa ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294, the place to be.